Hey, 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 everybody. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. The Santita Jackson Show. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Like and share. Shalom, Robert. Shalom, Robert. Hey, 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 everybody. Like and share, like and share. Please, everybody, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. We're talking about the election, and we're going to start in 10, 9, 4. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you as we continue this conversation about the election of 2024. Many people want to talk about the presidential election because it has captivated us. And we see down ballot the tremendous consequences that these elections have had all across the country. But now it's time for us to get to work. And so, everyone, as we begin the show, I want to do a little bit of informing. Please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Meet Robert Williams and everybody there. Please go there and like and subscribe and share the show. Go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Like me there. Become my friend there. That's the only place. I'm getting all these friend requests, but you all going to the wrong page. Please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's the only place where I can accept new friends. And of course, I'm on X at Santita J or the Santita Jackson Show, but go to at Santita J. I really enjoy that. But whatever floats your boat. Let's talk about this election. I mean, last week when we were talking about the election, we saw that we were hearing from the polls that the race was tighter than this. Tighter than this. It turns out that was not true. On Tuesday night, when I was observing the news by rather early in the evening, really not too long after they had closed the polls, Illinois State Representative Cam Buckner and Dr. Alia Amar, leader in the Muslim community, and of course, Bryce Green, brilliant writer with Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and of course, PhD candidate. Can't wait for him to get that, even though as he does his exercise his constitutional right to protest, the university has been trying to put him off the campus, but we're glad that he's back for now. I have to tell you, I saw that early in the evening, Illinois State Representative leader Cam Buckner, when I saw that former President Trump was at 200 plus electoral college votes, and she hadn't cracked 100. I said, oh, wow. Already this is a wash. And it was early in the evening. And by the time you hear this, it'll be a couple of days old. But as of Saturday night, President Trump won Arizona, which means he did a clean sweep of the swing states, a clean sweep. And if you step back and look at the map, it's even more astonishing. Flyover America, he flew into. He didn't fly over. And that's where you collect all of these electoral college votes. See, some states have a winner-take-all system. Other states, you have to go district by district. Whatever it is, the same science that he applied in 2016, he applied in 2024. But see, now he has experience that he didn't have then. And so it was really to even greater effect. So let's talk about this, and let's talk about the things that could have been done better. Let's talk about how this happened. Kamala Harris, for her portion, got 70 million votes. Not too bad. President Trump got 74 million votes. Not quite as many as he got in 2020, but more than enough. What did he do? What was the impact of Gaza? What was the impact of the migrant crisis? Be very clear, while Gaza is playing strongly nationally and internationally, when you go to these cities and these townships, the migrant crisis is playing in a huge, huge way. I think you could agree with me. Those of us who are in Chicago and New York and Los Angeles and pocketbook issues. People go to the grocery store and they're like, you're telling me that the economy is getting better. I'm not feeling it. Indices don't matter. Pennies do. So let's talk about this, everybody. I mean, what could have been done, what should have been done, what was done, and more than that, what lessons can we glean from this election so that we can find out what to do better the next time? And not just at the top of the ticket, but going down ballot. Because now we have lost the Senate in a decisive way, the US Senate, and we're trying to find out, will we have a path to get a victory in the US House of Representatives? If not, at least for 2 years, former President Trump will have complete runway to do whatever he wants to do. That is a lot. Let's talk about it. But you've got to give Kamala Harris credit. 107 days. She ran for about 4 months. Former President Trump ran for about 4 years. And she did a whole lot in a very short period of time. But we were hearing on the ground. And I'm going to start with you, Illinois State Representative Cam Buckner, who is in leadership in our state legislature. We're so proud of him and the work that he's doing. What happened? You were one of her surrogates. And I mean, let's just be very, very candid here. What were you hearing? What were you seeing on the ground? Because one of the things that was striking to me was the enthusiasm gap. Because I'm reading in the Axios report, there's a lot of enthusiasm out here. Okay. But when I was talking to people and when I was going to events, if you pulled Beyonce out of it and all of these stars, I didn't feel that as much. And when we were meeting at Push yesterday, which you were part of that, and your contributions were invaluable, it seemed to me that when we talked about the celebrity endorsements, it was the young people who said, no, that did not land with me. Somehow or another, they were most taken aback by that, Dr. Omar, which kind of threw me off. I said, so help me to understand what you saw and what your impressions were.
Yeah. So first off, I'll say, Santita, that a lot of the work that I was doing around the country for the vice president, put me face to face with Americans of all stripes, specifically in swing states, having conversations about the way forward and whether or not they could support this campaign. I will say that I did not feel the proper or sufficient amount of enthusiasm that I think that we needed to get us over the hump, and we see the results now. What I mean by that really is that a lot of us who were already completely with Vice President Harris were in this echo chamber, right? Patting each other on the back, giving each other high fives about why this was so historic and such a big deal. But I don't think we did enough to listen to the folks who were not decided or who did not believe in the electoral process. Once again, 40+ % of Americans who were eligible to vote did not vote in this election. It didn't excite them enough. It's funny that you talk about the young people not liking the celebrity endorsement angle. I teach a class at the University of Chicago, and my students, from the ages of 18 to 23, were saying that they felt like they were being pandered to in many ways just by the celebrity endorsement stuff. Megan Thee Stallion, Taylor Swift, Beyonce. And so I think that's something we've got to break down and figure out for sure. But I was happy about the fact we were doing Black men for Kamala and Black women for Kamala and white men for Kamala. But in many ways, that was an echo chamber. No one going to log on to a Zoom like that wasn't already with her for the most part. And that was I think a function and a result of the 2020 campaign, where a lot of what we did was based on Zoom, right? Because the pandemic, we couldn't touch each other. So I think that's definitely an issue. The last thing I'll say, just not to take up too much time, is that two things that I think are very important for us to pull from this loss for the vice president. One being that when we look at the polls had us believing one thing, and another thing happened. But the same thing happened in 2016, and the polling industry has not had to pay the piper for 2016. They have not explained then. They've not explained what they've done now, right? So I think that as we talk about changing the political system, we should also remember that historically most American pollsters have been white men. They've reflected a certain pattern of representation in that field, and I think the polls have looked like that because of that reason. Number one. Number two, what my analysis is moving forward, Santita, is that the Democratic Party now needs to make a shift from being a thermostat to a thermometer. What does that mean? Thermostats are charged with changing the temperature of the room. Thermostats just are charged with changing the temperature of the room. Thermometers just tell you what the temperature is. And the Republican Party has been a really good job of being a thermometer, just listening to what people say and finding a way to weave that into their messaging. We should take some pointers from that.
Well, they have, the thing is, they don't fall in love, they fall in line. They might not like Donald Trump. A lot of them don't. We missed that too. But we kept saying, well, they don't like him. They don't care. He's going to carry out a particular agenda. That's all they want of anyone. They put up the scarecrow from the Wizard of Oz. If the scarecrow will get them across the finish line. And I think that there's a lot that we need to learn about that, not to mention the fact that, you're making a real point about something that you're not feeling in the streets. Before I go pivot to other people, Representative Buckner, Illinois State Representative Buckner, that does matter, because one of the things that we were hearing from people who've been on this show in the weeks leading up to the election, because all we've had really it's been weeks, people have been saying that, we need trusted community leaders to be out knocking on doors. We don't need someone from New York knocking on my door. I need my neighbor knocking on my door. We need you to be out in these streets. $14 million to Black media when you have $1 billion budget, when this is the backbone this is the spine of your voting operation. That's not enough. First of all, the money that you give them will keep people alive. You're paying $1 million to people to consultants who are not delivering anything to you. Let's just keep it 100, because I know I've referenced Reverend Jackson's campaigns, but we learned so much from him, because he wasn't just running for president. He was running to get us contracts with the Democratic Party, because we didn't even realize that this was a private business, which is what the Republican and Democratic parties are, and they do business. So the people who sell the T-shirts and the buttons and the tchotchkes, those are $1 million contracts that we were not getting while we're giving you the votes. We didn't realize that we really should be on the DNC committee, the board of directors. We didn't realize that, wait a minute, no, you will actually give us money for budgets to run. Whoa, hold on, we didn't know that. There's so much we didn't know. While we're registering voters all the time. Didn't get support from them to do that, but we did it anyway because it was in our interest to do so. Help me to understand, just when you were seeing what you were seeing, because I know you would go back and or maybe, did anyone ask you, what have you seen and what your impressions are? Because you are a man of tremendous prominence here in Illinois.
People did. Listen, I think that the folks who were on the campaign, who I worked with every day, were extremely open to conversation. I think part of the problem, just from a logistical standpoint, is you literally had two campaigns in one, right? You had the Biden campaign, and then you had the Harris campaign, many times trying not to offend each other, many times trying to work in concert in a very short window of 107 days. And it's tough, because in that type of apparatus, it takes a long time for decisions to get made. It takes a long time for things to go up to the top, right? And that's just a function of where we found ourselves based on the point in the time when the president stepped away. But I will say this, I can't say enough about the folks who were working on this campaign in a very tight space, trying to get this across the finish line. They did a tremendous job. Once again, I think both them and the vice president really were tasked with almost the impossible. They were tasked with cooking a Michelin star dinner without being able to be the ones to decide what the groceries were, right? They got this thing, and and they were forced to create something, and they did a fantastic job. But hopefully there are some telltale signs and some points for us that we can build on moving forward. I think you're completely right about Black media. When you look at, WVON in Chicago and WDIA in Memphis, and WBOK in New Orleans, and WHUR
In
in
New York.
DC, right, and all of those places
Mhm.
really have been the backbone of how we communicate with each other. The Democratic Party has really left us in our own wake, and not resourced us the way we need to. And so the next step needs to be for us to tell the Democratic Party, don't talk at us, speak with us, and figure out how that looks.
Well, okay. Hey, everybody, briefly, let's go around this so we can get this conversation started. Dr. Amar, how big a role? Well, you tell me. What are your impressions of the campaign? Were there any telltale signs uh, that we would be here?
You know, I think there were. I spoke with people back on October 10th to say, "Whoa, the party's going to be in trouble because of the way in which the president has jumped wholeheartedly into this conflict." And I said during meetings with the administration in May, "You guys need to move." I specifically said that Michigan, Georgia, and Pennsylvania were going to be trouble spots because it's not an issue of trying to say, well, this is where Muslims are, or this is where Arabs are, and these are the people that care about this. Who flooded the streets in 2020 for Black Lives Matter? That was a progressive coalition of people that care about social justice. The Democratic Party has a significant, it still has a significant anti-war contingent. We saw for for over a year before this election, people out on the streets, people risking their jobs, risking their degrees, risking it all to get out there and carry this message. And the Democratic Party turned tone deaf to us. The message was very, very light, sort of, let's try to make people happy on both sides. You can't make people happy on both sides in a genocide. You got to pick a side. There are issues and times when you must pick a side. During the civil rights movement, you had to pick a side. You either want to have Black children in your classroom, Black people able to sit next to you at a restaurant. You either want to have a society in which we are integrated and moving forward. You either believe that qualified people of whatever race should be able to get the jobs that they are qualified, or you don't. There's no middle ground there. And so there was no middle ground, particularly for the Muslim and Arab community, when it came to Gaza and Palestine. Now, I sit on the board of the Black Muslim Leadership Council, and we did, at a time when no other Muslim organization would endorse Vice President Harris, we voted to endorse. And part of that was because we felt that there has to be some dialogue, there has to be someone who is willing to be engaged, but also because we felt that the domestic issues, the threats to civil rights were so important that we needed to look at the long game. Who seems to be best for us to sit with and negotiate around the types of issues that impact us, not only as Muslims, not only as people who love Palestine and want Palestinians to have the same justice that we once fought for South Africans. We we wanted to make sure that people didn't forget that African Americans have fought a long, hard journey. We have fought the fight for 400 years in this country. And we have been, and I have said this over and over and over in every speech I do, I feel like, we have been the only population in the history of the United States as African Americans to ever make this country change for the better, to ever affect meaningful social justice policy and change. And so you can't carry all of us into a message that doesn't follow that. You can't carry us through so much that bucks what is true to our hearts. We are still a people, Black, white, Asian. We are still a people across this nation in many ways that look at certain things and say, "Oh, that doesn't feel right in my soul. That looks wrong." And so the messaging, when it comes out and it's sidelined, it just doesn't sit with us. There was an opportunity at the DNC. There was a true opportunity at the DNC to allow a speaker to speak towards that. Muslims truly, truly hoped that that opportunity would have been taken by the administration. And when it wasn't, what was being said to us was clear. It was clear as a bell. And I think that the number
What was said to you, and what was clear?
that our concerns did not matter, that our concerns were not going to be addressed at that time. And if they were going to be addressed as something, possibly secondary to the concerns of other communities, but that it, we were being viewed very much as other. We are not other. Yeah. Muslims have been here since in terms of the existence of America. We have been here before the existence of America, and we are here and present and active. And if you get us out and you get us mobilized and motivated, we come out. We put in the calls. We get the vote out. We push communities. We're also a very highly multicultural religious population. We talk to everybody. But if the message to us is, "Hey, I'd like your vote as I bomb, kill, and starve your brothers and sisters, as I threaten your holy sites," that's not a message that we're going to take lightly. And that was the one thing that I was afraid when I saw that. And so I know this morning I used this quote, and I just want to put it into the context. I feel like our position is the same as what James Baldwin said. James Baldwin said, "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist." And that is exactly what was coming out of this campaign as the message to the Muslim and Palestinian and pro-Palestinian communities.
Well, which brings me to Bryce Green. He's written a very compelling piece. I would encourage people to become his partner on Substack. People backing genocide in Palestine were never going to save you. I'm wondering if we underestimated the impact of what's happening in the Middle East. I'm wondering if we looked closely enough, Representative Buckner, at police reform and incarceration and the vice president's record. I always wanted her to take the bull by the horns, and just say, "Look, I did some things well. There's some things I wish I could have done better. You got to understand how the system is. I walked in wanting to do this, and you see what's happened to Kim. You see what's happened to a lot of people. I want to get in and change things, but I need to get in there to do that. And I need you to continue to do what you're doing to advocate, so I do it." I mean, just something. But I'm wondering if some of these issues that people feel so profoundly, Bryce Green, if we really, really understood that people were willing to say, "You know what?" Because I think that saying that people just sat on the couch and decided not to come out, that's insulting to them.
No,
Some people made, I'm not saying you, but I've heard it in some other conversations. I'm like, no, some people were so angered that they said, "This is my form of protest." My grandmother, God rest her soul, she died in 2017. And she would have been close to 100 had she lived. This is my mother's mother. She was a deeply conservative woman who had been, Sheila. She had been a migrant worker, born in the United States, but in that part of Florida, in South Florida, in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, it was porous. Disney World made Florida, a tourist state. It was really swampland before, right? and where the rich could live and have extravagant places rather inexpensively. But she's one of these people who got on the boats and did daily and seasonal work. And so, and she lived with Jim Crow. She lived with with the First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt coming to her school when she was doing the tours. Zora Neale Hurston taught at her school, for example, right? And she said, she began to despair of voting because she saw so much corruption in the system that it really disappointed her. It didn't make her despair, but she was profoundly disappointed when she died. She looked and she said, so much is not right here. And I can't argue with someone who fought Jim Crow to get me here. I mean, well, okay, so she did try to figure out does your husband have a job? Jackie, tell me what he does. But then she saw what he did and she said, my grandmother was a civil servant. I mean, she works in the VA hospital. She was the person who served you your food in the hospital. Okay. And so I'm just saying, I want to caution us to be very, very careful and very gentle when we speak with people, because acting as if folks just lazily sat on their sofas, that's not true.
Right.
You have a lot of broken hearts out here. You have a lot of disappointed, Sheila. A lot of people are very disappointed and who don't know any other way to tell you that 40% of the voters, eligible voters, people who registered to vote, who said, I'm not going to do this. I'm done with you. I'm not saying I agree with it. What I'm saying is I'm listening to you. People want to be listened to. They want to be acknowledged. Layman, thank you. You said you you love my historical context. Yeah, and that's why I said in the last hour, I have more days behind me than I have ahead. But I don't say that in some morose way. I thank God for all the time that I have had and the things that I've seen. But I would be negligent if I didn't share with you the things that I've seen and the benefit of having been in the room. Because as my brother said when he was running for Congress, he said, I've been in the room. And that means a lot. And what we've tried to do is with those experiences, Sheila, Garland, Alana, Ron, is bring them home. This wasn't for me to be the first and the only. This was for me to bring it home so you know what to do, so you can get in the room and know what to do when you get there. So Bryce, tell me, why did you write this piece? And what was the thrust of your piece? It was brilliantly written. I mean, because you broke down just so much of, you really broke down where we are in America today. And maybe why we ended up where we were on Tuesday.
Right. I wrote this piece because there's been a lot of talk in the pundit class, the talking heads ask, what did we do to lose this election? How did this happen? And there's been a lot of disappointment among people who genuinely thought that Kamala Harris, the Democrats, Pelosi, Schumer, all those people were the quote unquote good guys who were going to save us from, the fascists, the Trump, all the Republicans. But in reality, I think if we look closely, we can see that the people who was thought of as the good guys, they've done a lot of damage to this country, and at least they've been unwilling to take the steps necessary to fix it. Now, you can give a consultant $1 million to tell you why people win elections, why people lose elections. But I think the answer is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. If you make people's lives better, you will do better in elections. If you make people's lives worse, you will not do as well. And people's lives got dramatically worse under the Biden-Harris administration. Just looking at the numbers, child poverty. In 2021, when Biden came into office, 5.2% of children were in poverty. When he leaves, or in 2023, the child poverty is at 13.7%. It nearly tripled. Food insecurity increased from 33 million people to 47 million people. It increased by almost 40%. Poverty overall, there were 25.6 million people in poverty in 2021 when Biden came into office, and there were 42.8 million people who were in poverty last year. So most people have been watching either themselves or their family or their friends have dramatically worse outcomes in their life. I mean, I feel ripped off every time I go to the grocery store. Imagine what it's like for someone with a family, with children. You mentioned that we don't want to blame voters for being, too lazy to show up. No, it's not them being lazy. They're making a calculation that it is not worth my time to get up off my couch to go vote for one of these parties who clearly hates me. And you can see it. I mean, the Trump administration during the pandemic put together a very decent suite of poverty reduction policies. Maybe they didn't notice it before it passed, or what have you. But the fact is that it passed, and a lot of these policies ended under Biden. The eviction ban started under Trump, ended under Biden. The unemployment benefit expansion started under Trump, ended under Biden. The foreclosure ban ended under Biden. The free school meals ended under Biden. Extra SNAP benefits ended under Biden. Student loan pause ended under Biden. The Medicaid expansion ended under Biden. There are 30 million people now who are going to lose their health care because the Biden administration didn't act to save it. So all of these things are why they lose elections. And people, you don't need Beyonce to go out there. You don't need Megan Thee Stallion to go out there. No, people don't care about that. If they do, they were probably already going to vote for you to begin with. No, the people who are really hurting, Megan Thee Stallion isn't going to, bring food on the table. Beyonce is not going to make sure that your child has enough to eat. All of those things are something that the government is supposed to do. This government, the Biden-Harris administration, did very little to extend these poverty reduction policies, and did very little to end this trend of people being impoverished. I mean, just remember when they were trying to, or they put a bill up that would raise the minimum wage. They were trying to pass it through the reconciliation process by the House and the Senate, so you could only you only need it with 50 votes. But the Biden administration, they did nothing. When the parliamentarians said that no, you can't put this in the bill, they said, oh, well, it's too bad. No, that's ridiculous. They have the ability to remove the parliamentarian. That's what the Democrats can do as part of Congress. That's a statute. There's precedent for it. They refused to do it. Progressives were saying, you should do this. It would be good. People's lives would get better. You might win elections. They didn't seem to care. And so people saw that. And at the same time, people also saw what the Biden administration really cared about. And that's giving money, giving political support, giving weapons, giving billions and billions and billions of dollars in aid to a country that is currently committing genocide. Loudly, proudly committing genocide and lying to us and spitting in our faces while we do it. The Biden administration did nothing but cover for them. They did nothing but cover for them, enable this genocide, try to tell us that they weren't. And so while people were getting poor, they said, no, we got to support Israel. We got to give them billions of dollars. It's mind-boggling why there's even a debate about, why did Kamala Harris lose all these voters? No, you know why. They saw you committing genocide while their lives were getting worse. It's not a hard equation. And they did this because they don't care about winning. It's very easy to see that all the polls were showing that people supported a ceasefire, people supported an arms embargo, but there was a stark difference between the voters, the people, the people who run the democracy, and the actual the politicians, the president, the House Democrats, House Republicans. 80% of Democratic voters are in favor of a ceasefire. 8% of House Democrats are in favor of ceasefire. 56% of Republicans are in favor of ceasefire. 66% of all voters, they're in favor of ceasefire. You saw the Biden administration pretend to be working for a ceasefire, but this is 2024. There aren't 3 TV channels. People aren't stupid. They have the internet. They know what's going on. And so every single time Biden went up there and said, I'm working for a ceasefire, or every single time even AOC went up there and said, Kamala Harris is working tirelessly for a ceasefire, you're 2 clicks away from figuring out what the truth is. And the truth is that they don't care about a ceasefire. They don't care about Palestine. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't even care about winning because they don't have a vision of the world that they want to put forth. The Republicans, it's a horrible vision, but they have a vision that they're fighting for. So they have something that can motivate them to actually win elections. Democrats, they have no such thing. And you can see it now. Who's lost their job because of the Democrats' poor performance? Whose job is in jeopardy? Not the media pundits that make the Democratic apparatus run, not the party leaders at the state level, not the party leaders at the national level, not the consultants, not the president, not the people in Congress. None of them are at risk of losing anything. The only thing that they would have to lose is a chance to make the world better, and they've demonstrated pretty clearly that they are not interested in that. So that's why they lost elections. Until that changes, then they're going to continue to lose elections. And it's not a hard equation. They just don't care. And young people, my generation, they're watching all of this, and there's a reason why young people keep staying home, is because they see this. They make the rational choice, the rational revelation that neither one of these parties cares about me. I could go out and vote for a third party in protest, but they're not going to win. So maybe I should just stay home, keep working my job, because the cost of groceries is going up and I ain't getting any richer. That's what happened over the last election. And there doesn't seem to be any indication that they're going to change. So it's going to keep happening. In 2028, they're going to tell us this is the most important election of your lifetime. And they're going to be doing some other heinous crap around the world. Who knows what wars they're going to start? Who knows what wars they're going to be supporting? Meanwhile, poverty is going to keep increasing here. The world's going to keep getting worse, and people are going to recognize it. But this is the most important election of your lifetime. This could save it. No, it can't, because we saw it last time, the time before that, and the time before that. I mean, this is the same party that once Bernie Sanders was polling very well against Trump, they saw that. They said, we don't care. We don't want to make people's lives better. We are going to screw Bernie out of this nomination, and then we're going to put in someone who's decrepit and unpopular. That's what they did. And this past year, they completely ignored the primary process altogether. You had Democratic Party officials saying, no, we're not going to hold an open primary. That would be ridiculous. Democracy. That's why they lose. And, if a Democratic consultant were to give me $1 million, that's what I'd tell them.
Whew. Well, there is that. I saw you shaking your head in agreement to so much, Sheila Garland, Alana Ron, because he mentioned poverty. Ooh. Something that people don't want to talk about. And the thing is, I think it's important for us to talk about this, Sheila and Dr. Amar and Illinois State Representative Cam Buckner, because it's the margin of despair, right? To act as if people are not in pain out here it's cruel. It's cruel. It breaks my heart to go into the grocery stores knowing that the cashiers, they can't go on a shopping spree. Mm-hmm. I'm just running in the store getting some extras because, I want the limit on this. I saw it on the Food Network, and this gotta, because I'm not gonna lie, I watch that, and so I'm excited about cooking now. Yes. And okay, I need to go on and get this. I'm gonna find this. And but when this cashier told me months ago that she was trying to figure out how to shop in the same grocery store where I was shopping, because she got a teenage son. So I know she's choosing. You could see from her demeanor that she said, no, I'm going to feed my son first. I'll come to the grocery store hungry. And you campaign as if this is not happening, while Trump is surrounded by a wall of people who look like they're struggling. And he's swaggering and swagging and telling them, I'm going to take care of this because I know you're mad. Me too. I didn't say that he really cared. I don't know. I can't read anyone's mind. I do know that he knows enough about marketing to speak to it. Did he mention poverty? No. But he had a lot of impoverished people around him. He didn't have the really lovely people around him who look like they're not in want. No, he had folks who looked like they were struggling. He always does. So, Sheila Garland, are you surprised by Tuesday's result?
Hi, everybody. Sorry I was late, actually. To answer your question, I was just at a community discussion here. I live on the north side of Chicago, and the United Neighbors of the 35th Ward has done a lot of tremendous work around, electing progressives and those sorts of things, and actually engaging our neighbors. Even after the 2016 victory of Trump, we organized all kinds of defense mechanisms to protect us against ICE and deportations, and all we were talking about, what were our feelings. And I think one of the things that was really important is this whole idea that not only will we protect ourselves, but all of us, women who are coming for abortion care, trans folks coming to the city of Chicago, being what does it mean to be a real sanctuary city. So to your question, I wasn't entirely surprised by Trump's victory, particularly after the DNC convention, and where the Harris campaign just, when she trotted out Liz Cheney, and that was it for me. I just go Dick and Liz.
No, back up. Why was that it for you? Why was that it for you?
I mean, if you know anything about the history of Dick and Liz Cheney, they're war hawks. Even Trump called her a chicken hawk. And she was it just appeared as though, and it was hard for me to watch her. It was so painful to watch her, how she would maneuver around sort of direct questions in her town halls. My
Wait, Sheila, wait a minute, stay right there. I want to engage you for a hot second. Sure. I said, for all of the campaigning on Project 2025, do you not know what that means? I'm like, do you not know that she supports it? Mm-hmm. Do you not know that she voted with Trump 90% of the time? Mm-hmm. Hello? Do you not know that her father stole the 2000 election? Led us into a war that killed 1 million Iraqis at the very least. Are you for real? Mm-hmm. I talked to young people who were born when that happened. They didn't even see it, and they were angered. They said, "How are you gonna make her the enemy, and then she's your best friend?"
Exactly.
What?
Yeah. And how are you gonna take Michigan by saying, "Oh, look, I'm buddies with another Arab killer"?
How
was that gonna make sense?
It doesn't make. But Sheila, I interrupted you, but I just, when you said that, I said, wait a minute. Oh no, what?
It's like a real slap in the face for people who are paying attention. And I'm from Flint, Michigan. So when I saw the numbers on Dearborn, I just shook my head. Mm-hmm. She put out an ad in Michigan. I think I was talking to you about this before. That was so pro-Israel. It was so, she had the Jewish flag, which is fine. She can do that. But it was such an insult.
But then she put out another
of Michigan, of Dearborn, whose families are running for their lives, losing their lives, where, this genocide is taking place. It's like, where's your humanity? But I wanted to back up because my child was here yesterday, and they still live in Michigan, in Flint. And they were watching, they kept a little bit closer than I did, because it was just, that they were saying, listen.
No. When you said it was just, what do you mean, before you get to that?
No, I'm just saying it was just so difficult for me to watch her mumble, not mumble, but just ignore what was in front of her, that she could have taken and seized an opportunity to shift her messaging and to really do something that would have made a substantial difference to the folks that were listening to her.
But you know what, Sheila? But before you get to, because I want to hear what your daughter said.
No, it's not my daughter.
Your son, excuse me.
Gender non-specific, so I'd say they.
Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, okay. Your child. That having been said, what we were missing, I said, wait a minute. How is it? How are you missing this? Because this is. You're not speaking, you're missing, you're not reading the room.
Right.
I'm speaking. I said, oh my gosh, who's telling her this? And the people who are telling her this are, quite frankly, they're the elites. Mm-hmm. The people on the ground are like, what?
Right.
I know she didn't mean any harm, but I was like, you're getting Washington advice when you need to be in Anacostia, which is Southeast DC. There's Washington and there's DC, y'all. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She needed to be getting some DC advice.
And Santita, and that's the thing. It was almost like somebody was, had her corporate funder had the back of her neck and was telling her what to say. So Tunde was telling me that they were paying attention to this town hall, and a woman came into the town hall and said, "I'm homeless. I've had long COVID. I'm not able to work, and I've ended up homeless." And Trey said that Kamala just started talking about something that was completely irrelevant. In that moment, she could have said, "You know what? You need to come to us after the end of this town hall, and we're going to talk to you about how we can." I mean, there were so many things that she could have done instead of acting as if that woman was just see-through. That there were so many she could say. Well, let's talk about my housing program, how I'm going to address the issue of homelessness. We see how the state, the Supreme Court, is addressing the issue of homelessness with grants passed that came from a Democratic governor out of California. I mean, he was the one that initiated that whole lawsuit to criminalize the homeless. So, there's a whole lot, but I was just at this community meeting, and the thing that really struck me with these young organizers, they're trying to think politically here. So I don't feel hopeless, because the environment that I'm moving in and the folks that I'm working with, young people, young Latinos, young African Americans, whites, we're all in this room together, really talking about how do we organize to, one, defend ourselves in a second Trump administration. We have some idea, but really explaining and breaking down for folks, what does it mean to be a real sanctuary city when we can't rely on the federal government to protect our people, our community? And I want to mention, I have a whole stream of things coming in, but I want to point out that in Chicago, I was listening to some of the statistics, but in my area, the 35th, 33rd ward, Hermosa, which is one of the poorest communities on the north side of Chicago, very poor, predominantly Latino, a lot of undocumented folks, they went for Trump. And, so that really tells you what Bryce was talking about earlier, is the calculation of the Democratic Party is so directed by their corporate masters. We see, those of us who are looking, we see that controlled by his corporate masters, but to really feel that abandonment from the party since the end of the great crash of the Depression, that has just done a complete about face. And so I think I'm reminded of the words of, because there are a lot of people that are active, and we don't really have time to sit and reflect and think about the history that we're experiencing, but also the history that we've inherited. I really appreciated the sister's comments earlier. But I'm reminded of General Gordon Baker out of Detroit. He was the founder of the League of Black Revolutionary Workers, out of some of the work that he was doing in the auto factories in Detroit, the Detroit Revolutionary Union movement that spread all around Michigan. And he was extraordinary in his understanding of how we need to have some form of class independence in this country. But the thing that he said that always stands out to me, he said, listen, you can be active, but what we have to do is we have to turn fighters into thinkers and thinkers into fighters. Mm-hmm. And and he reminds me of your dad, talking about how do we develop those kinds of leaders that understand the terrain that we're fighting in. We have a lot of smart people who have been able to figure out like a lot of things, and they see the data, understand the data, But how do we turn that into an agenda that's independent from the agenda of the ruling class? And that's been our only option. But where does our independence begin? So I think that this is one of the things that I'm grappling with. This meeting that I just came from, these young people are grappling with, how do we get independent from this so we can begin to make those changes? Santita, I always say I know Mr. Green said there are 42 million, but our calculations, we updated the index to determine who lives in poverty in the Poor People's Campaign. And our research shows that the accurate figure is 140 million plus poor people, with poverty being the fourth leading cause of death in this country. And with that calculation, we're talking about 43% of the population. 66 million are white. You got to pick up Reverend Barber's book that says white poverty and begin to understand why this division along the basis of identity has been so successful. And so that's number one, but 140 million. But we always say the people who need change will fight. And one of the things that the Trump campaign messaging in these communities for those folks that came out and voted and those that may have switched is that they felt like Trump was addressing the economy, even though we know he didn't say anything substantial. But for those folks, just his constant mentioning of this horrible economy was enough.
No. Hold on. That was substantial to people who are not hearing the other people say it.
But
When
that's
we're talking,
exactly.
when we're talking about college and the Divine Nine, 2/3 of Americans don't go to college. And those of us who are part of the Divine Nine, Illinois State Representative Cam Buckner, and I are part of the Divine Nine. You get on a college campus, they might take 5 to 10% of us. So you're talking to such a narrow slice. I mean, oh my gosh. Stay right there though, because I want to extend this conversation a little bit, because I really need to get a little bit more from everybody today, because you all are bringing up some points that everybody wants to talk about. Last week, we were told, Dr. Amar, that the race was tighter than this.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to 9 o'clock Central Standard Time by the time we found out on Tuesday that the race was lost. And when you look at the Electoral College, the interesting thing about it is that it helps you to see America in a disaggregated America, right? You see it ward by ward, district by district, congressional district by congressional district, because some states are winner take all, Sheila. Others are, no, you got to win these congressional districts in order to get the Electoral College votes. Mm-hmm. Some have faithless electors. It is a system that is, quite frankly, unfair, uneven. It is a mess.
Rooted in slavery. Oh my God,
absolutely. Yeah. And it preserves the oligarchy, which is what slavery was always about. And so,
an interesting thing.
Stay right there, because I have to break right here for the commercial break, because this is a radio
right
show. So everybody stay right here, because Bryce, I want you to speak to what John Walsh has to say. I want to hear from Dr. Alia Amar. If I can keep Illinois State Representative Cam Buckner with me a little while longer, Sheila Garland, Alana Run from the Poor People's Campaign of Illinois, I want us to do a deeper dive on this, because if we don't express what we're seeing and what we're feeling, we're going to repeat this. And people, and more than that, people's needs are not going to be addressed. Right. That's the thing. What gives me a lot of hope is that people now want to organize. Push was packed yesterday, our Saturday morning forum. Mm-hmm. People were looking for some answers. Right. They just said, and I'm not depending upon the corporate media to give me anything, because I'm not listening to them. And see, that was the other piece. People went right past them. They did. And we need to talk about this, because they kept telling us that Gaza didn't matter as much. Oh, that's not true. Yeah. People didn't want to talk about the migrant crisis. They don't want to talk about police reform. Mm-hmm. The fact that we're in an incarceration nation. Mm-hmm. All of that stuff matters. All you have to do is look at these videos and listen to folks talking in the streets. Yeah. They will let you know, wait a minute, there was a lot of unrest out here that went unaddressed. I'm Santita Jackson. Stay with me, everybody, here on the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. We are breaking down this election. And I think we need to break it down, because we need to understand what happened. And this panel, Sheila Garland, Alana Ron from the Poor People's Campaign, Poor People Do Exist in America, Illinois, Yeah, we're talking about it. Bryce Green, brilliant writer, has really helped us to see that people are asking a lot of questions about funding Gaza while we've got an explosion of poverty in America. I mean, what's going on, everybody? More and more people are poor, and we're spending less and less money on the people and more money making corporations richer while the poor are getting poorer and middle class people falling into poverty. Upper middle class people are falling through the middle class into poverty too. There's a lot going on. We've got to talk about this. We've got Illinois State Representative Cam Buckner with us, who was a surrogate for the campaign. And he said, you know what? The enthusiasm, yeah, I was not seeing it, feeling it. And we've seen campaigns where you feel the buzz,
Mm-hmm.
and that's important. But when you when you don't feel the buzz, something is wrong. Everybody stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe there and share the show. Share the show. Please, on X, the Santita Jackson Show, and at Santita J. Go to at Santita J. I really enjoyed that part. Plus, I like that picture just a little bit better. Thank you very much. And of course, go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Dr. Amar, you've been a bridge between the Black community and the Muslim community. The Black Muslim Leadership Council is where, I know you from high school, quite frankly. Yes, but I am much older than she is. I was a freshman. I was a senior when she was a freshman. I'm giving my time away. I'm good with that.
It's okay.
It's good.
I picked up another year as of yesterday. So
praise the Lord. Well, happy
day
birthday,
before
girl.
yesterday.
Happy birthday, girl.
Thank you.
That's right. Looking fabulous. Okay, everybody, let's talk here because I want to know kind of what we're talking about here, and I certainly want Bryce to speak to John Walsh's concerns, because it seems like whenever you engage in critique, people want to almost label you a traitor. And I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
How are we going to ever get out of this if we can't disagree or see something? I mean, you will never address what needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I'm happy to respond to him.
Oh, okay. I want you to, but first, Dr. Amar wanted to say something.
No, I'll pass. I'll come back to me.
Oh, I know you want to hear what he's got to say.
Yes, I do.
John Walsh, and I want to hear what everybody has to say, really. As Facebook user, Yvonne, hey, sweetie, saying that prices are quite high, and Kamala Harris was talking about price gouging. And that was very important. And the people who are doing the price gouging are in charge now, everybody. But guess what? They were not that far from the front of the line, even if she won, because no matter who's president, the oligarchs are at the front of the line, y'all.
They were donating to her campaign.
Come on. They were. They're political, but they are bipartisan. They don't care about parties. They care about power, everybody.
Exactly.
John Walsh said, hey, Bryce, your candidate and party won. You can stop with the phony outrage. What say you?
I'd say this is indicative of the mindset that got us into this mess in the first place. If you hear me go over the poverty figures, all the poverty reduction policies that Biden saw end, if you hear me go over that, and then your response is not to respond to that, not to say, oh, they're trying, not to rationally address the things that I'm saying, but it's to just say I'm a traitor, well, then you're part of the problem. You're the exact kind of person that the Democrats thought that they could get. And I guess they did, but they couldn't get other people, the people who are sitting here thinking about what the country's actually going to look like. So, I mean, if you are unwilling to actually engage with critiques of the Democratic Party, then I'm sorry. Then you have nothing interesting to offer, and I don't care what you have to say.
Well, no, there's that part.
I
that was
think
mean.
Bryce has a great point with that, though, because one of the problems is that we've become so divisive within the society that we can't hear each other when we may disagree on policy points. as people who are still concerned about the progress of one another. You know, it's become a thing where unless we're all goose stepping together, then all of a sudden you're just too far on one side or the other side. There's value in stopping to hear that, and not doing that, I think, was a major problem within the election this cycle. I agree with you, Bryce.
Well,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
for the
like you
record,
said, good stepping. Go on. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
for the record, my candidate did not win. I voted for Dr. Jill Stein. She did not win, and I voted Democrat. And all of the down ballot races that were political, they did not win. So I don't want to say shut up, but be
Well,
quiet.
you know what? My thing is this, and Layman and or Lamont and AW are wishing you happy birthday. So
Thank you. Thank
Amar.
you.
Everyone wish Dr. Amar happy birthday. Come on, everybody, please thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Andre, Robert, everybody wish her happy birthday. Look, I believe in it, honey.
Thank you, everyone.
Amen. That having been said, we've got to be able to put this out here because please let this audience know what your Substack really, this piece, it was more than an essay. It was really a report, I would say, and I'm going to forward it to everyone. What you said in this report, because you said, look, these people are not going to save you. You're looking in the wrong space.
Exactly. My point is that the people that a lot of liberal voters and a lot of Democratic-minded people were counting on as the good guys to get us out of this mess, they were never going to save you. They don't care about the well-being of the Palestinians. They don't care about your well-being, and they're not willing to do anything to advance your well-being. And so when people are sad and despondent that the Democrats didn't win, that Kamala and the Democrats lost 14 million voters, well, I think that if you're that distraught about it, then you were looking in the wrong place. These people who are, actively massacring children as we speak, actively impoverishing Americans as we speak, we're never going to be the people to get us out of fascism. They're going to be the people to grease the wheels for fascism. They're the people who, people forget this. And there was a lot of talk about this in 2016. But the reason that we got Trump was because of the failure of Obama. The reason we got Trump again was because of the failure of the Biden and Harris administration. It's not a hard equation. Obama kicked millions of people out of their homes and let the banks get away with it. Obama started wars that destroyed entire societies. And of course that people are going to react to that by saying we want something different. Now, people respond to different signals, cultural and economic. And so some of them went and voted for Trump. And then in 2020, they voted for Trump again, but this time more people came out for Joe Biden, wishing that he was going to be a figure of change. He came off the strength of the Black Lives Matter movement. Well, how did Biden respond to that? Well, Trump had had a certain amount of money for the COPS program, which was how much money that the U.S. federal government is going to get to hire more police so they can be more militarized, so they can touch more communities, so they can do more of this stuff. Well, the Biden administration, they more than doubled the funding for this program. They more than doubled funding for it. So he spit in the face of those people. All these pandemic era protections, Biden didn't fight for them. He's spitting in the face of those people. All these people who are saying that, oh, well, Harris is going to continue the Biden administration's revitalization of America. Well, she was spitting on us then, and the voters clearly saw that that nothing was going to change. So the whole point of my piece was to say that if we are looking for salvation, if we're looking for a political movement that's actually going to affect people's lives and change things, then we need to look elsewhere. Or we need to do the work to build and solidify the structures that we have that aren't beholden to the Israel lobby, that aren't beholden to corporations with billions of dollars, that aren't beholden to Wall Street, that aren't beholden to the foreign policy establishment that is geared towards empire. We got to build our own structures. the people who are currently deeply embedded in those structures, they're not going to save us, and they never were.
Well, let me ask you this. How old are you, if you don't mind?
I'm 26.
Okay. I think that's important, everyone, because these young people are they're much more flexible. They're willing to abandon these legacy structures to create something new. I mean, they're more willing to vote third party, build another party. It was the young people in my life who said, "Liz Cheney, are you kidding me? Why would she be going around with her?" I'm just telling you what I was hearing from young people. And I think it's important. We've got to listen because look, they're right here. They're the future. They're here. And they're telling you this is not working for us. They're the ones who are leading the charge on the Mideast. Mm-hmm. They're the ones with the energy. Right. And they're pushing the needle. And I think it's important for us to listen. And quite frankly, the celebrity culture is it is what it is, but it doesn't mean the same thing to Bryce and to his young people that say it meant to us, because there are no heroes and idols anymore. I mean, we see them and we go, ugh. I mean, really, I mean, maybe that's one of the gifts of what's happened with Diddy and the CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch. No one wants to talk about someone who literally groomed. He had an operation where he was looking for boys, many of whom were straight, and he decided to drug them and have sex with them. I mean, my goodness, it's Sheila. That's what happened. Mm-hmm. I mean, no one wants to talk about what happened with this guy. We just want to look at Diddy and freak offs. Diddy had freak offs. He had sex events. Mm-hmm. He, his partner, and a person they hired went and found young men who wanted to model. If they were straight, they gave them drugs so that they become sexually aroused, and they gave them other drugs so their muscles would be relaxed. It's all out there in black and white. So people are looking at celebrity culture and they're like, "I'm over it."
But one of the things maybe we could look at is just the culture of humanity, because one of the beautiful things about Bryce's generation is that they care across the board.
Yeah.
And we were like that once. You and I were young people out fighting as hard as we could for South Africa, mm-hmm. Because we saw ourselves as connected to that struggle. When I was in Palestine in September and October of 2023, right up to the war, what I saw that you never see on the media here are Black Palestinians, the
yes.
Afro-Palestinian culture. The mayor and city council from the city of Jericho, the oldest city in the world, look like me and you and our uncles and aunties. And they want to be seen and known, because what the population of Afro-Palestinians can sometimes be boggled by is, why aren't people fighting for us as much? Do they know that we're here?
No, because may I interrupt you right here? Mm-hmm. Because there are issues that we all have in our communities, because they're all the same. Mm-hmm. The Palestinians here don't let us know that they're there, and they should. They should feature them more prominently. They should. It's just like if you look at Telemundo, and it's not quite the same, but it's in the same flow. If you look at Telemundo, you would not know that there were more Black people sent to South and Central America than were brought to the United States.
I think you have a valid point on that, in that it would be wonderful for the Palestinian community to raise, the issue of, hey, they're Afro-Palestinians and let us join with you. I think that for many in the Palestinian community, they're struggling to be seen, period, as they are, and they need to expand that.
Well, all I'm saying is
so that there's more that's seen, of course.
All I'm saying is, because I met Fatima who was the hero of their struggle, who was a Black Palestinian, mm-hmm. 45, 46 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so I was telling people as a teenager, mm-hmm. do you know that there are Black Palestinians?
Right.
The fact is, many people come to America and they get absorbed into the white world, and then that's it. And that's unfortunate. But America exacts that price of people. And so while they're in this struggle,
Mhm.
and while we're trying to build coalition and communities, they have to put that out there and say, hey, do you know these people? We're brothers and sisters. When the bombs are being dropped, they're being dropped on them. I think
And
when
you know, there are contingents, and you've met with some of them. There are contingents of Palestinians who are very much interested in working in concert with the African American community. Rami Nashashibi of Iman, who is right there in the heart of Inglewood, attempting to transform this neighborhood and transform our relationships with each other. You know, Muhammad Abdullah, who has taken not just his gas stations and thought a little bit more about where they're placed, but thought a little more about what they're doing. He's put reading rooms and literacy centers into them so that if there's not a library in your neighborhood, can you get to the library that he's putting in? And then he's put in about $250 million into African American communities. I think that the broader message, the broader push has to be to allow us to highlight, you know, the people who are doing that and not just the people who are dividing us so much. And you know, I was in DC.
I'm only saying that because other communities come in our community and they do that.
Yes.
They make themselves known. They say that they are our friends, they are our allies, but they don't have a Black community.
Right.
I'm simply making the point to you that that's where they need to be shored up because they exist, but no one sees them, and they're not putting that out there. And
Right.
they would help themselves if they did that.
Yes. And I think though, and I agree, I don't think that we're fully in disagreement. I think that when you're making these alliances, you have to kind of find what the commonalities are, what the touch points are, because we're not as familiar with one another. One of the legacies of America is that we all pick up on race really darn quickly. You land here, you pick up on race, and you begin to operate from certain perspectives without understanding what the touch points are to other communities. My passion in uniting the Black and Palestinian communities is to simply say that, you know, and here's one that I definitely agreed with the vice president on. There is more that joins us than separates us. There's more that we have in common than what separates us. I'm going to join the chat for 1 second because you have one person who unfortunately is unable to change his, well, maybe I'll just say it. Hamza, you need to change your keyboard to English for the inside of the chat.
Okay, there you go. And you know, and I'm simply trying to give to you things that could be helpful because then sometimes you get pushback in the Black community, Sheila. Well, they'll say, well, there's no relationship between them and us, and we've got our own problems. And I'm like, well, it's those of us, you've spent time overseas. I have too. And so you see something different. But when you are here, first of all, most of us are locked in. Getting a passport costs money. And we're trying to get across the street. So if we don't know that these people exist, if we don't know that when Mariah Carey talks about her father being Venezuelan, I realized that those were smoke signals that I'm South American. I'm like, sweetheart, I already know that there are more Black folks in Venezuela than there are here. I know that President Chavez identified, oh my goodness, look at this baby. Oh, I know President Chavez identified with the Black community because he was half Black. So, I mean, I'm saying, no, wait, bring that baby over here. No, we love you. Cam.
Oh my God, he's just a mini you, Cam.
No,
oh my
no,
God.
no, Britt, now who's this Precious?
This is Castillo. This is my baby.
No, we love you. Now you can leave now. No, not him. You. Yeah. That's right. We love you. He can sit right here and you can just go on about your business. Look at, how are you, Precious?
How are you? How you feel?
Look, he's doing just fine. How old is he? How old are you?
How old are you?
How old are you? Are you 2, 3?
Two.
Oh, you're 15. I see it. He's a teenager. Yes, he is.
Two.
Oh. See, but you know what? You know what this reminds me of? What my parents were doing. And this is how our children learn. We bring them into these spaces because this is how they learn. You'd be surprised. My father says, you don't remember, your child doesn't remember the presence with a T, they remember your presence with a C. And where you took them. And so I'm just glad that we're able to have this very honest, earnest conversation today, because in order for us to move this ball along, Dr. Amar and Sheila Garland, Alana Ron, and Illinois State Representative Cam Buckner, we've got to put this stuff out here because these are the conversations that people were having privately. But I was saying about Venezuela, we don't know where the African diaspora are everywhere. And they're in that. So I remember the relief that Yasser Arafat had when he was able to introduce my mother to Fatima, who is a heroine of the Palestinian resistance movement.
Yeah.
And she said, and my mother came back and she said, we don't even know that they have that population. When my father met President Sadat, when he walked into the room, Representative Buckner and Sheila Garland, Alana Rod, and Dr. Amar, he stopped and he was floored. He looked at him and he said, my brother, you look just like me.
Right.
Because he looks like he's from that part of the world.
But if that
was exciting to them. It's just like when we go to Africa and people, it's exciting. And I think it's important for us to know all of these different elements of our struggle. Yes. And who's there.
Well, one of the things that strikes me wherever I am in the world is that we are so present with each other. The things that we need as human beings resonate across cultures, but the ways in which our struggles for our rights and our freedoms resonate with people all throughout the world. If you're at Ida Camp in Palestine, right outside on the wall is a giant mural to George Floyd. You almost have to put it in context because they have murals for many of their martyrs that line that same wall, people who have been randomly killed by Israeli snipers who shoot from the towers that surround the refugee camp. And the children, there's a video where the children are kind of walking home and they stop to kiss the pictures of those martyrs. If you take just one moment to realize that they would put George Floyd on that same wall and say, we understand your struggle. We're living your struggle. We are living each other's struggles globally, whether it is in Palestine, South America, Africa. We need to be talking about the 15 million Sudanese who are dying right now. There's famine. We need to take our energy and rededicate it to the idea that our rights are rights that are human for everyone, that everyone has to be seen, and that it doesn't take anything away, because we've been lulled into this false sense. And I agree that with Bryce about empire. We have been lulled into this false sense under the guise of empire that there's such a small slice of the pie for us that I got to bump you out of the way in order to make sure that I don't miss something. I don't need to bump you out of the way. I need to join with you in coalition and we stand together, because that's the only way it's going to get done. And especially as we move into this post-election phase, we've got to see each other and be there for each other.
And that's always been the point of the Poor People's Campaign. That's what Dr. He was fighting for. That's how Reverend ran for president. He was like, I'm not running. He said, I'm a Black candidate, but this is an American campaign.
Yes.
And what I'm trying to do is give you the Black perspective. And the Black perspective is in Appalachia, where there are poor white people who are perpetually poor.
Right.
I mean, and when you look at Chris McGreal's work, and it's been published in the Guardian, he has a tremendous book. I'm gonna pull that up, in which he talks about the tens of millions of opioids dumped. I mean, Sheila, in
Yeah.
really in Appalachia, excuse me, that's how they pronounce it.
That's how it's
That's
pronounced.
been it's been dropped there so that they could be lulled, so they could be numbed out and could just continue to work, just as they dropped crack in the Black community.
Mhm.
I mean, we're all functioning with the same set of problems. And I'm going to wait for, because of course, Illinois State Representative Cam Bucker is dealing with his baby. I wish you all could see this, those of you who are on the radio, because he's got his baby and he's brought his baby in, and we have all fallen in love with Castillo. We just love that. But let me ask you this, because I mean, now we're watching, now that we are moving into the Trump presidency, right? Because we're making the transition now. And people are saying it's happening very quickly. Well, former President Trump, now President-elect Trump, understands the system in a way that he did not in 2016. So he's hitting the ground running, as Kamala Harris would have been able to do. When you're in the system, you kind of know what's going on. They're putting the migrants on the buses and they're sending them back to Texas right now. Sheila, what is your response to that? I mean, because I've been talking about this tent program for refugees and how the oligarchs have been pulling these people here, Dr. Amar, so that they can work for cheap.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, and there was another initiative, because part of a condition of our freedom is that we keep it until we go back to prison, right? And I think it was in California that this slave-based initiative was defeated. That is to say, they will continue to use prison labor. I mean, Americans, there's a real strain in our society that supports not paying people, because slaves don't work for free; they're unpaid labor. Let's be clear. So, what do you make of how they're handling these migrants, Sheila?
Yeah, so I mean, I a lot of it has been said. I think points to the fact that we're dealing with an international ruling class oligarchy that controls the world narrative about who's acceptable and who isn't. And in our discussions with one another, we never really look at the role of these huge corporations and how they are able to move freely from country to country with very little oversight, regulation. They can go and displace indigenous people in Mexico and Venezuela and Brazil or wherever they decide to go. And no one really says anything. But when we start talking about people, the conversation from the top really determines how we see one another. And so I say this all the time, Americans and just the entire world, but it's particularly here, we have been some of the most propagandized people in the world. And the propaganda is for a reason. That propaganda isn't just for them to yap, yap, yap. It is to guarantee that they're able to maintain control. And the way you maintain control is to guarantee that the people, as you call them, the enslaved, the workers, that we're pitting against one another, that we're fighting and seeing each other as the enemy or the other or the all of these categories that we've been propagandized to accept. There's no such thing as separate races, but we use the word as if it were a fact. It's not. We're all human. And the reality is that race is very social. It's a political and social construct.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on. Wait. Let me ask you something, because listening to you, it's making me wonder if that did not help swell some of Trump's vote in the Black community.
Absolutely. Because the way that even here in Chicago, I mean, not knowing the terrain that we operate in, especially as those of us as leaders, and where influence and money come into our communities to determine what kind of messaging we take out, because maybe we're paid $50 or $20 or $200, or some entity in our community gets a $20,000, $250,000 grant from what's that Black Front, that Trump fronted organization that was operating out of Chicago during the height of the migrants coming in. And so, the propaganda comes from somewhere and for a reason. And if you're paid, because we have people who are living in poverty, who are one paycheck away from, they're not going to question, well, why are you paying me money to go down to City Hall to protest? They're going to say, I need this $50 to put some gas in my tank. And so, because the poverty makes us vulnerable in a lot of ways, not just for the political rhetoric, but also, just directly impacted in terms of economically what people will do to earn $50. Do you want to get $50? Yeah, I need you to get on this bus and I need you to say what's on this paper. So, we had a lot of that going on, some of that going on in Chicago. So,
but you know what? But Sheila, you know what strikes me? I'm sorry, before I forget. No one talks about all the Ukrainians who were brought to Chicago.
30,000 Ukrainians. 38,000 Ukrainians were settled in the Chicago area.
At the beginning of the conflict.
At the beginning, with not one single Ukrainian sleeping on the street. Not one. You never saw.
Wait a minute. They were fast tracked for citizenship.
They got papers
for jobs. For job training, for school.
They got their, so they got all
of
that.
They have to worry about their babies in cages.
Right. And they got all of that. Why? Because the federal government stepped in to guarantee that they got what they needed to settle in this country.
Well, first of all, we brought them over here, Sheila.
Well, they brought them over here, but they set up an app on their phones. So before they even got here,
that's what I'm saying.
They were going to stay.
Girl, we went and got them and said, we have a new home for you.
Exactly. And this is the home you're going to stay in. We're going to match you up with somebody who's volunteered from the Chicagoland area to house you until we can get you into permanent housing.
Wait, no, stop. No, stop.
Okay.
Stop. I'm just trying to tell you this is a story, everybody, that is not told. I want you to slow down and tell it again so people know. No. Because in Chicago, we have an area called Little Ukraine. And let me tell you something, everybody. To me, everybody in the world deserves safe passage and safe refuge. Okay? The beauty of, I think the Lord has blessed America in spite of our many missteps and profound sin. Sin is an archery term that means you've missed the mark. We missed the mark on so much, and I know this is not what the founding fathers meant, but what America ended up becoming was a refuge for everybody in the world. It did, but we're selective because we only want Europeans. Because what we have given, everybody's complaining about what the Latinos are getting, right? And what the Haitians might maybe get, even though they've been brought to Springfield, Ohio to go to work. No one's talking about because I saw them in my beauty salon. And, they would very quietly say, well, they're from Ukraine and they're really having a hard time. I'm like, oh, okay, bless their hearts. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, so she's not worried about a green card. She has a place to live. As I talked to the young woman, she was going to school, Dr. Amar. I said, oh, wait.
She doesn't have to make a sign in a language she doesn't understand while her child stands next to her and she begs on the highway. We've all seen that, right?
And at CVS and Walgreens. She's not out there begging for food.
Right.
But I want to say
explain they explain what they get.
No, I'm just saying, but before I do that, I want to explain this to the listeners because I think this is important. I'm not saying this to suggest that no one deserves to live well, that no one deserves to be in a place where they're in danger and they're not safe. I'm not saying that because I think the Ukrainians that came over here are somehow not worthy or whatever. We
But
all
we
should
stated
be.
that at the
No, we're
outset.
saying that everyone
We're
should
saying
have
that
that kind
they're
of
getting.
opportunity.
Well,
The
I'm saying
point
that's why I was making the point. We went to get them. I
Yeah.
don't have a problem with that. What I
Right.
have a problem with is us demonizing these brown and black people.
Exactly. And let's be clear, Santita. When the Ukrainians came over, they were given an app on their phone in order to connect to someone here in the Chicagoland area, so that when they got off their flight, they had somewhere to go. And that sets the federal government under the Biden administration set that up for those Ukrainians. So that tells us that the Biden administration could have done the exact same thing for coming in from Venezuela, from Haiti. But I want to say this. I want to say this
No,
very
because they
clearly.
push.
The
So wait,
Biden
because they're still
administration,
pushing. They want the Haitians to go to Guantanamo base on Guantanamo Bay in Cuba and put them in prison. Now,
there are some that
that is the plan for Haitians.
Yeah, and good Lord, But I do want to say this: that at the same time that the Ukrainians were coming over, the Biden administration opened up the U.S. borders and said that 30,000 a month. This was the year 2022, I believe. In 2023, maybe 2021, 2022. If I have my dates mixed up, I'm sorry. But every month, 30,000 Venezuelans, 30,000 Haitians, and 30,000 Cubans were free to come and seek legal status. And as they came, they weren't given housing. They weren't given, the same things as the Ukrainians. They weren't given those things, but the borders were open so that when they showed up by this administration, so that when they showed up, they would not be turned away. They could seek asylum. Why? Why weren't they given the same status as the Ukrainians? Well, the reason that they weren't given that is because now you have another political wedge that you can insert between the workers here and the brown migrants that were coming from the South. In addition to that, the Biden administration and all administrations, because Trump's going to do the same thing, they're trying to get at the Venezuelan oil. And so one of the ways that they are doing that is to politically vilify. They're doing all the things that they do as a government to guarantee that they undermine Venezuelan political.
May I say this? They want Venezuela without Venezuelans. They want Africa without Africans in it. Because if you take them out, then you can just go in and take their land.
Exploit the resources.
I mean, we need to be real clear that the plan is to remove these people from their homeland so we can go in there and have at it. I'm just putting it where it is. And what did you say, Lamont? You said we are listening and learning. Yeah. So that's why I want you all. We're giving you this information. I had Sheila Garland a lot around. She's got so much information. She just she puts it out there, and so does Dr. Amar. As a moderator, as the host, I hear things, and I'm like, wait a minute. So when I stop you, it's not to stop you. It's like I want you to. People on the radio, they channel surf the radio like they channel surf television.
Yeah.
It's just you don't have the radio, you don't have the visual assist.
Yeah.
So you have less time on the radio. So when you say something that catches the ear, it's my job to stop you and say, hey, wait a minute, I need you to amplify this.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep repeating your name so people can look for you. Yeah. Because also, as a producer, I know that other producers are listening to the show, and they pulled a lot of my guests and put them on television and on other radio shows. Because you have information. My point is to get you out here so we can get the information, so people cannot be lied to anymore.
Yeah.
As I'm watching the vilification of the Venezuelan people, for example, what grieves me greatly is to compare and contrast how they're being vilified and how Haitians are being vilified and how the Ukrainians are being treated.
Yes.
All I'm saying to you is when I hear that our Hispanic brothers and sisters are getting assistance, I'm like, good for them. Now, what you need to do is give it to all Americans because all Americans need some help. How about that?
Exactly.
We're
Yeah.
making a false choice. We're
Yes.
spending trillions of dollars on war when you could be spending trillions of dollars on people. Dr. King said if you continue to put this money in war and not on programs of social uplift, you'll be approaching spiritual death.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is look at the homicide rate. Congressman Jackson at the push yesterday said he has 3 friends, Dr. Amar, in the past 2 weeks who have children who have talked about suicide. He said, you all, we got a problem out here that we're not talking about because everybody thinks Black folks don't, but Black folks do. And we have something called also suicide by homicide.
Right.
Our children walk into situations that they know they're not going to get out of alive because they don't want to be alive. Wait a minute. So as we're talking about, when we look at this campaign, these are the subtextual issues that are driving the despair that make 40% of the electorate of those people who registered to vote stay home.
But these are the potential connectors.
That's
for
my
us.
point.
You know, these are the things that can connect us. If what you are living through places you in so much despair that you or your child are considering something as serious as suicide, and if you are, please call 911, call the National Mental
What are
Health
you supposed to
Hotline,
do?
take care of that.
Say,
But
no. What should you do if you're considering suicide? Somebody might be listening.
you can call 911, you can call 988, and the National Suicide Hotline has people available 24/7. They also have an online chat section. If you don't feel like you can get through to a person by phone or you don't want to talk to someone by phone, you can initially start by talking to someone by chat. There's always help. And if you can't get any of those, go to your nearest emergency room.
Okay.
Now, what I'm saying about the suicidality issue is that that's pain. And we all know and understand pain. But we have to look at what is causing the pain. Because what is causing the pain of that person might be causing the pain of their neighbor, whether their neighbor shares anything else demographically other than that zip code. We have to realize that what connects us, that what truly connects us, desire for our children to be safe. You know, I've got one child that lives in America, I have one child that lives outside of America. I want both of my children to be safe. I'm tired of worrying that my child who lives in America is at risk of being shot if he's pulled over. You know, I'm tired of feeling that it is so much better for my child who does not live in America to stay abroad because America may not do him justice. So when I think globally about the world and when I think locally about the world, I'm thinking the same thing. I want my child safe. So does that Venezuelan mother. So does the Mexican mother. So does the Puerto Rican mother. So does the Haitian mother. So does the Palestinian mother. You know, I want food on the plate every day for everybody in my household. My Palestinian brothers and sisters want food. They want food. Some of them haven't eaten in days. They want food. My Sudanese brothers and sisters, they want food on the plate. Is that too hard for us to kind of join with and say, I believe that that person deserves food on the plate? But in order to get that, we got to get our government to stop thinking that what we want are bombs instead of burgers. Okay. We got to get our government to understand that when they are creating the causes of people becoming migrants, nobody wakes up in their country and says, you know what, this has been cool for my whole life up to this point, but I'm going to jet to this completely foreign place where I don't really understand the language and I have no connection.
My parents were here. My cousins are here.
Right.
My grandparents are here. My food is here.
Right.
My school is here. Everything I know and love is here, but I want to go.
Right.
Are you kidding?
That's
like,
not the calculation.
That is, nobody does that.
Nobody does that.
These people are running, these people are being
For their
forced out
lives.
of their homes. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because when you look at what happened on Tuesday and what was happening in the month leading up to the election, this is part of it, everybody. And particularly when I'm talking to these young people, that's why I asked Bryce to tell us his age, because they have seen, these kids have known nothing not just the Vietnam War, because that was dying down when I was a child.
Right.
They've known war after war after war after
Yes.
war. They have seen a Black president. They've seen women on the tickets. Mind you, we broke that ground 40 years ago. We had never seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what Dr. King and my parents and that crew thought? They hoped and prayed that if we get Black elected officials and people who've been marginalized, that when they get into the office, they're going to take that experience with them and they're going to make a change. And you know what we saw? In many instances, yes. In many other instances, no.
Right.
And these young people are saying, when you're running with Liz Cheney, who voted with Trump 90%, 89 point
Right.
something percent of the time,
Right.
and you're making her a heroine, and you push Bernie Sanders to the margins,
Mm-hmm.
and you make AOC change her positions, because guess what the dirty little secret is, everybody, while everybody's going upside AOC's head? If she doesn't play this game, and you can say whatever you want in your little independent space when you're not representing anyone, and when all you have to worry about is you.
Mm-hmm.
She is being blocked from committees, everybody.
Right.
Committees and connections that can deliver for her constituents.
Yes.
When my brother signed on to the ceasefire resolution, he's still one of the originals.
Mhm.
He has an MBA from one of the top business schools in the world.
Mm-hmm.
He has been blocked from business councils.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a soft block.
But it's a
Where
block.
he would be able to, it's a block
Yeah.
where he'd be able to get jobs and deliver services and money to his community, because they don't appreciate him taking that stance. These are the prices that you pay, everybody.
But we
So
also
that's why
have
we're
to.
bringing all of these pieces to you,
Right.
so you can understand. Even when you look at Kamala,
Mm-hmm.
let me give this to you just before you continue, because I've had this. I'm writing this stuff down because it's
Mhm.
amazing the things that I pull up. When my
Mhm.
mother came back from Lebanon,
Mm-hmm.
before she took my father over there to meet Yasser Arafat and Fatima
Mm-hmm.
and the Palestinians, she came back and she was so devastated, Sheila, by what she saw, Aliyah.
Mm-hmm.
I told her she had to stay in Paris for a week to decompress
Mm-hmm.
before she came home to these 5 kids, you know, a toddler. My sister was like 2 at the time, and I was like 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, okay.
Mhm.
She said, as soon as she got home, almost she started calling Andrew Young.
Mhm.
They had been staffers together for Dr. King. She calls him and she says, I need to come to New York to see you. He's like, Jackie, of course. She gets there and she says, okay, just got back from Lebanon with Yasser Arafat, Palestinians. So that's over there. The story is all wrong. We've been hearing about it, but now we got to do something about it because we're sponsoring the destruction of these people. He said, Jackie, when I touch this is the 3rd rail. I can't do this because I will lose my job. And we are doing this, which we're trying to make inroads on South Africa. We're doing this. But I mean, he was doing some really great work in the UN.
Mm-hmm.
She said, look, we can't, this is part of Doc's work, because everybody calls Dr. King. He said he wouldn't stand for this. He said, look, Jackie, this is the 3rd rail of American politics. You don't understand. She said, first of all, what would Martin do? So she leaves New York. She gets back to Chicago. Maybe a week, 2 weeks later, there's a controversy. Andrew Young has met with the Palestinian observer to the UN,
Mm-hmm.
and he won't apologize. My father was the only top-tier Black leader who said, don't fire him. Keep him there. We can't afford to let him go. They ended up letting him go. He went to see President Carter maybe a day or 2 later. He said, hey, what? He said, Reverend? He said, Reverend? He said, look, you were right. This is an intractable situation, and we've been trying to deal with it. He said, but you know what? And he went to his drawer, and for effect, I guess, he pulled out, like, these are my notes from today.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you see these telegrams?
Mm-hmm.
They wanted him fired.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you were the only and you were the best known Black leader who wanted him to keep his job.
Yeah.
He said, if I had gotten just a fourth of these telegrams from the Black community, I would have been able to keep him.
And
But because you were the only one, that there was nothing, I was powerless to do anything. Right?
And that's actually the point that I was about to make, Santita, because that's exactly what's happening now. You look at Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. You know, they fought the good fight. Why did they lose their seats? They lost seats because of organized lobbies that are exactly
That's what it
that
is.
they were pushing. But every single day, I've heard this, whether I'm meeting with members of the administration, whether I'm meeting with other politicians, I hear this constantly. Every single day, there is a lobby that has someone in specifically to talk about their message. Every single day. They contact them about every single bill that they are interested in. That lobby, if it was us, you know, that would be wonderful. That would be incredible. Maybe we wouldn't be dealing with things like students who can't afford to go to medical school in the United States.
Your lobby is the NAACP, it's Rainbow Push, it's the Poor People's Campaign. The fact is, we don't want to indemnify them so they can fight the good fight. These are your lobbyists.
And
Dr.
that's what I'm
King was
saying.
your lobbyist.
Everybody listening needs to get on board.
Yes.
We have organizations, support the organizations. If you don't want to support the organizations, pick up your phone and talk to your congressman and 5 congressmen that make your congressman's life miserable. Pick up your phone and let them know that you're there. Click when you get those move on things and you kind of feel like, oh yeah, that's kind of an issue I'm thinking about, but you know, I think I'm going to watch this cat video for a minute. No. You've got to get involved. We have to be involved. We've become passive about this thing, and the other team is not passive. If Harriet Tubman had become passive, a lot of people wouldn't have been free. If Reverend Jackson, if Mrs. Jackson, if Dr. King and Coretta Scott King had been passive, we wouldn't be able to be having the conversation that we're having right now. But they can't be the only ones out there doing it. Their organizations can't be doing this in some vacuum where we only get involved when we feel passionate or when we want to criticize them. Get off your butts, get on your feet, get on your phones. It is time to strap up, strap in, because we've got to fight the good fight.
And don't be frightened of former President Trump. He's just a man.
Well, you know what? I'm more frightened of. I'm
Let
frightened of
me say
J.D. Vance.
if Dr. William Barber, if Reverend Dr. William Barber, with all of his health challenges, he struggles to get out of bed every day.
Mm-hmm.
If he can give you his all,
Mm-hmm.
why can't you give something?
Yeah.
Every time I see him, I see him struggling just to move. And he could be in a wheelchair, but he's showing you, look at me. If I'm going to do it, you should do it. Get out here and do something. But these are the things, when you look at what happened on Tuesday, the culmination of our vote, that's what happened. And when we don't push, the Democrats don't feel pushed, or the Republicans don't feel pushed. The Republicans felt pushed, and you know who pushed them? Trump. Trump brought all those voters in, and guess what? When he did that, they listened.
Mm-hmm.
When Jesse Jackson brought the voters in, when Bernie Sanders brought the voters in, the Democrats shut the door.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I'm saying this because these are people who get up and who are doing everything they can. If the system works when you work it, we've got to get to work, everybody. Mm-hmm. I understand people feeling some kind of way about the election. I understand it. But right now, there's work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
We've got a migrant crisis. And the little brown and black people are not the problem. The problem is you got the oligarchs who want to rape their countries, but they need them out the way. This country was built on enslaved labor. Mm-hmm. That's what this is. These folks are making more. You have people who are on track aside from the Queen's family in England, to become trillionaires.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and you saw where the market totally jumped after Trump was elected. Some guy realized 1.64 billion. I can't remember his name after the election.
And you know what? They were
Folks are
excited
making
about
money.
Kamala. They were excited about Kamala too, because the way the game
Well, of
works,
course.
and I'm not being unfair to her. I'm saying the way the game works, this is the way it works. She can't move unless we move.
Mm-hmm.
None of these people can move unless we do the work.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what? I want to get some closing thoughts from everybody. What a tremendous conversation we've had, because I think that we've been drilling down on the things, on the things that really matter, on the things that people were voting about. Things didn't just sit at home. They were not sitting on their sofas. People were protesting. People were angry.
Yes. Yes.
And people don't know what else to do. Do I think they should have voted? Yes. But they also don't trust the system. They don't trust the corporate media. They don't trust the voting machines. When you have these many cracks in the body can come apart, everybody.
Yeah.
Watch this.
And all of that is propagandized design. I mean, that people have these fears. It's all propagandized by design.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're so propagandized. And I'm gonna keep going back to what General Baker said. We got to make thinkers into fighters and
That's
fighters
right.
into thinkers.
Say that again.
We got a General Gordon Baker out of Detroit. He says we got to make fighters into thinkers and thinkers into fighters.
Amen.
Because otherwise, we don't have a chance. We have to think about. We have been so disconnected from our history. We're being taught to be anti-science, to not think. Our schools are being privatized as we sit here, and the kind of curriculum that are being fed to the children of working people is not the same education that the elites get. They're taught how to think, how to be analytical, how to really analyze what they're hearing. We're not taught that. We're taught to, just follow the rules. Make sure if you're not here on time, you're going to get penalized. It's all about punching that time clock. That's what
they're not being educated. They're being trained.
They're being trained.
Whereas the elite
are being educated, right? And we think getting a degree in business is going to save our lives, and they're getting degrees in art and history and these things that make you think broadly, or philosophy. But our kids, we're being pushed into, you got to be a business person. That's your only way out of poverty, where we don't want you thinking, we don't want you questioning, because if we have an educated population, then they're doomed. You're uneducated. People are miseducated for a reason. Not saying people are uneducated. People are deliberately miseducated.
Absolutely.
In this country. And we are propagandized to within an inch of our life that we fear one another. When a child is on the street, when I say child, I'm talking about somebody 20, 21, 22. And I've had these experiences. Like, we've been taught to be afraid of our youth. Like, you can't say anything to a child. Why is this? When I see a child, I want to say, hey, sweetie, you look so cute, da 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 da.
So many of our children have felt so devalued that they devalue life.
Exactly.
And we've got that problem too.
Yeah.
So because they don't care about their own lives, they don't care about yours.
Yeah.
And that's what Dr. King talked about, the spiritual death. I'm sorry, I'm having to close it out.
No, for real. But I'm just saying,
I've got 30 seconds.
I know, as adults, we have to love on our children. We shouldn't be
love on each
afraid of
other.
them. Huh?
Let's love each other.
And love each other. Yes. It's
Come
so
on. Love each other.
Wonderful. You're so wonderful. My honey bought tickets for us to go to a show, and I have to
Bye. I love you. But let me give Dr. Amar this last minute, because I got to close the show. I love you, girl. Go on.
Love you. Love you guys.
It was so nice to be on a panel with you.
Girl, be fabulous. Have fun.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Dr. Amar, your closing thought.
My closing thought is almost always the same. We have to stand together. There's a basic belief in my faith that God puts it, and I believe in the faiths of many people, that God puts the distinction between right and wrong in your heart, that you know a thing that's wrong when you see it. Now, in my faith, we say that if you see a thing that's wrong, you change it with your tongue. You change it with your hand. If you can't change it with your hand, you change it with your tongue. If you can't change it with your tongue, you hate it with all of your heart. But that is the weakest of faith. And so we believe in getting up and going out there and trying to change it with our hands, whether you're marching in the street or working in a soup kitchen, whatever it is that you can do to manifest change, you have to do it. We also have a saying to help your brother whether he is right or wrong. And the person to whom this was told said, I understand helping my brother if he's right, but when he's wrong, and he was told, you help him by preventing him from doing more wrong.
That's right.
And so when we are seeing a society that is moving in the right and the wrong direction, we shouldn't be labeling each other and saying, well, you're a traitor and you're an Uncle Tom and you're this and you're that and your party won and all of this foolishness. We need to be saying, if I disagree with you, if I think that you're on a wrong path, let me speak to you as my brother and humanity. Let me try to now prevent more wrong. But if I see a wrong, a systemic societal wrong, can I pick up my phone with my hand? Can I use my voice to talk to my congressman, my mayor, my school official? Can I engage in the body politic that is acting upon me in my daily life? Yes, I can. I can change it with my hand. I can change it with my mouth. But I'm going to try not to be weak in faith, because if there's anything that I'm holding in my heart that I dislike, I'm going to be moving on it. And I want to invite everybody who is listening to this to do that. Join the organizations. Mm-hmm. Create your own organization. If you aren't satisfied with what's out there, create something, but make it more than a conversation piece. Make it something where you get out and you actually do something. Foster the change. And if we do this, we create a safer, more just society in which we can live together in the type of harmony that we are intended to live together in. That's my final thought.
The beloved community is the point, everybody. It really is. You can use the government to make it happen. But as my father said, divorce happens before you get to the courthouse and marriage before you get to the church.
Yes.
Intention in your mind and in your heart means everything. Get out here and make the beloved community. Start within your own heart, clean it out, and then resonate. Let that resonate to your neighbor, to the person you are living with, to the person you're living next door to, the person you see walking down the street. Just give them a smile. Let's move forward, everybody, and let us do it together. That's the only way it's going to work. I love you, everybody. I love you, Dr. Amar.
I love you too. Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you for sharing. I love everybody. And you know what? Get registered to vote right now, because you need to vote. You need to get involved. And I understand that there are a lot of disappointments, but you keep on living the disappointments along the way. Mm-hmm. But if you keep at it, you'll win. But you got to keep at it. The struggle continues. Remember, it does continue, and victory is certain, but the struggle continues, and you just keep on struggling and you keep on pushing, and you will be you will be winning. You'll be a winner, and you can win every day, but you got to fight, everybody. It's all good. I love you, everybody. Love you, morning stars. Sending you so much love. Shalom, shalom, and my love to everybody. And thank you for sharing those wonderful words from our Islamic brothers and sisters from this beautiful, beautiful religion, because you know what? We can learn something from everyone, and we should. How about that? Thank you. Thank you. Love you, girl.
Love you too.
God bless you.
Goodbye.